Well, listen, everybody, let's get started. I want to talk today. We're going to be talking today with my friend and colleague, Debbie Davis. She's from Atwal Eye, she's the CEO there in Buffalo, New York. And though, for whatever reason, couple years back, I accused her of being from Pennsylvania, and I've never forgotten that. Um, but it's still fun for a laugh. But I mean, listen, the Buffalo Bills, they've been so close so many times.
Yes.
I'm rooting for you
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very
between
much. We're
them and
hoping this is going to be our year. We are hoping.
between them and my Minnesota Vikings. It's like
Yeah.
it's where dreams go to die. The um the topic of today is, what do ophthalmologists need to know? What do leaders need to know about the role of an administrator today? And I can't think of anybody better to talk about this than you, Debbie, and it's for a bunch of reasons. One is that you've been in the seat for a long time and you've seen a lot of changes, but more importantly, there are so many more demands on practice administrators today than ever before. It used to be that we kind of ran the schedule, and so long as billing was submitted and things were pretty straightforward, there wasn't I mean, there was some variability, and dealing with people is always difficult. But now there's, private equity considerations. We have to know the P&Ls like never before. There's real liability if our team isn't trained to a certain level. There's new technologies. There's research now that, it's how do we find our new doctors? What new markets should we be going into? What's our EBITDA? And how do we do partnership agreements that we're comparing to private equity, but doing it internally with our own internal docs? And how do we keep up? And then at the end of the day, how do we fight things like declining reimbursement and all the mega trends that are facing our business? And really, that's what this whole session is about. What these sessions are about with practice habits. It's as often as we can. Hopefully, on average, about once a week, we get together and we talk about either changes in the industry, new technologies, new ways to build things we should make sure our teams know by way of team culture. How should we be training? It's a way for us as practice leaders to just learn from one another. And I learned from a lot of people who gave freely of their mind to me, kind of growing up in the field. And so this is just our way to do the same. And so I appreciate you being part of the conversation today. I want everybody to know Debbie is not being compensated for this, and I hope you stay on after learning that, Deb. So, so, um, but listen, you're a leader in the industry. You command a lot of respect. You've been in several leadership positions, not only for ASOA, but also for other organizations. You and I have served together in new courses like BRICS and others. You've been a part of the BIGS, Business of Interventional Glaucoma surgery courses. If it comes to leadership and how to adopt new technology, you've got a front row seat. So maybe just give us a big overview first. Tell us a little bit about you and your practice and why you're trying so hard to stay forward facing in your leadership role.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for that introduction and thanks for having me. Yeah, I've been in ophthalmology for 39 years and have remained with the same practice for all 39 years. So, which is quite the feat in this day. So when I started in ophthalmology, much of like what you said, Matt, we were, filling out our HCFA claims with pen and paper, and we were not participating with Medicare. We were being reimbursed over $2,000 for a cataract surgery. We didn't have any of the regulatory issues, concerns that we have today. We didn't have EMR. And we had a different, how do I say it? We had a different type of workforce back when I started. Things have definitely evolved. And with that, my position did as well. And I'm very, very fortunate that with my practice, I have amazing leaders in my positions. And Dr. Amar Atwell, who I started working for 39 years ago, he had a vision. He wanted to open an ambulatory surgery center. We are a CON state, so we had to get a certificate of need, and it took us quite a while to have that evolve and happen. We're one of the first Medicare and state approved physician owned ASCs in our area. And at that time, that was a really big deal. I mean, people just didn't know what an ASC was. So when I started with the practice, we were a couple of people in the office and one doctor in a very, very small office. We built a huge building with the idea that we were gonna build an ASC, and we did. And now here we are 39 years later with 80 employees in the clinic, 70 employees in the ASC, 5 locations, a dry eye clinic, a LASIK center, and a vision correction center, aesthetics. So we've come a really, really long way. And with that, um, I've grown with the practice and worn many, many, many hats along the way. And I think it's sort of like that analogy where you put the frog in cold water and you start turning the heat up, and the frog eventually gets used to the water and will die. But if you put him in boiling water, he'll jump out. Well, I just kept, I'm in that water and I'm just taking everything on myself and just, yeah, I
Yeah,
turning up the heat. And so I'm
slowly,
able to
slowly.
wear, yeah, and I'm able to wear many hats in many different areas and take on that. But I don't think new administrators can, nor should they. I just think it's just impossible to learn all of that and be responsible for all of that. So as a leader, I have to make sure that I have a team under me that can support me, and that when I'm no longer here and I decide to retire, that they can stand on their own 2 feet and be successful, like we've been for so many years. So leadership development, practice culture is so critically important to me.
Well, you keyed into a couple of things that I just want to respond to. First of all, I'm reminded how close you were to one of my favorite people, Kim, who ran one of our centers for Vance Thompson Vision, and how much of a mentor you and others were to her. And she is no longer in ophthalmology.
Right.
I think in part because of burnout. I
Yeah.
am no longer in the seat of a traditional administrator, in large part because of burnout. That and I've got a pathological ego and egomania. It's that's just a joke, everybody. You're supposed to laugh at, but the no, but I mean you can really take on too much.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so, maybe just to start off, how do you make sure that you don't burn out?
Yeah, I have a really, really good support team here, in the practice, but also at home, which is really, critically important. And we have to make sure that our teams aren't only successful here, but they're having that work-life balance, because it's so easy to get burned out and you can just keep taking things on, and until it's too late. So I really loved to read. I'm in a book club. I love to do a lot of outdoor things with my husband. I have my daughters and then my grandsons. So they all keep me grounded. But I do. I mean, if I'm asked to do something for ASOA, I am not going to turn it down. I'm really, really excited that I'm the new administrative program director for Hawaiian Eye. I was asked, and it was like no hesitation. I was so thrilled to do it. But I also make sure that I set time aside where, this is when I'm going to work on this project. This is when I'm going to work on this one. This one maybe has to go in this pile, and maybe I need to delegate that to somebody, and maybe I need to open that up to another staff member and give them an opportunity to shine and to work on a project within the practice. And it took a long time because I am that personality that just wants to do it all herself. And, I can do it better, so I'm going to do it. And it really took some time for me to say, no, I'm not. And other people can do it. And it's for the better of the company and for the better of myself.
Yeah, when you delegate it, certainly it is that way. One of the providers that I work with, when I was having to learn to delegate, which was hard for me, they challenged me and said, "Why are you so afraid to hand this off?" And I said, "Because what if they don't do it um, as well as I do?"
Right.
And they said, um, well, that's one concern. Be happy if they did it 80% as well as you. And I said, I'm not sure if I am. And they said, well, you should be okay with that, especially if they're learning. He said, what if they do it better? And that made me more uncomfortable, actually.
Well,
Right.
that's
And
not
so,
possible.
exactly. And so that I do think that that's an interesting tell,
Hmm.
though, is if you really want the organization to succeed, you should be trying to find people around you who you can, delegate tasks to, who can take it on, who hopefully would do it even better than you would.
Yeah,
That's a sign of, a healthy environment. And that means that you have capacity continue to hunt for things that are going to keep the organization solvent.
yeah,
And I always considered the most important roles of a CEO are twofold. Number one is to bring confidence of future solvency. Okay, so, and I said it like this, assure future solvency, meaning if everybody wakes up in the morning and they decide that they want to work here in 3 years, it's my job to keep my eye on the prize for the organization to make sure that that's a possibility.
right. Hmm.
Singularly focused on
Yeah,
that. And the second one is to create an environment that's increasingly worthy of the people who check in and out of it every single day, the
right.
team.
Yes,
That if it's an environment that's worth going to and they can get excited about it, that keeping that spirit alive for where they're going to be spending the majority of their hours while they're awake, that falls on um, my shoulders as a leader within the organization. And I hear that coming through with how you're talking about what you've done to implement new things, new building, new ASC, new sites, but also your desire to delegate.
yes, yeah. And I learned that later in my career. I wish I would have taken advantage of that earlier because it really is such a great thing, first of all, to see somebody else shine and to see, to see them grow within the organization. And also the freedom it's given me that I can concentrate on other projects and other things. And I don't have to do it all. Maybe I can, but I don't have to. We are, we have always been at the mindset that we do not want to um, go PE, and that's just a decision. We want to remain a physician-owned practice, private practice. So we've had to, that with that in itself, really, there's, a lot of moving parts to be able to do that. With, like you said, with the declining reimbursement, with the physician shortage, we're constantly recruiting for physicians. We are trying to come up with, how can we where can we get more revenue? How could that revenue stream continue so that we could still afford to give our employees increases, take them to meetings, help educate them? And a lot of that is like thinking outside the box, thinking outside of insurance, thinking about things that we can offer our patients that are not covered by insurance, but they're really meaningful, great treatments. So it's just a different mindset than medicine once was.
Well, let me challenge you on that a little bit, or just maybe summarize it. What are some of the top three areas that you're trying to find newfound revenue now that maybe you didn't exist a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I would say interventional glaucoma is probably the newest. And not only is it good for the patient, but it's, a good revenue stream as well if you're if you are being interventional. I think a couple of years ago when the first BRICS meeting came around and I was asked to participate in it, which it's just an incredible, incredible program. I brought my doctors who really thought they were doing a bang up job on converting patients. And they were just blown away on the things that they didn't do that they went back and then implemented. One of the biggest things for my main doctor was he didn't like to talk about price. He didn't like to even talk about options. He just wanted to get in there and you have a cataract and let the counselor um, handle the rest. And I had said to him for years, your recommendation means everything to that patient, but it took him going to Bricks to really hear somebody else say it. And then he came
Yeah.
back and implemented that. And it's not only, I don't want to make it sound like it's only revenue. It's not. Our patients are so happy. Our our cataract patients with LAL or with a multifocal or with a toric lens, they're so ecstatic. We've been doing a lot of refractive lens exchange patients. We did a 21-year-old the other day who was a minus 22. She is just, ecstatic with her results. And it's just, it's very rewarding. About 4 years ago, we opened a dry eye clinic in our main office location. So we're doing a lot of the different dry eye treatments. We also just brought in an esthetician. So we're starting to do some facial muscle stimulation procedures with a tri-lift machine, and we're going to incorporate facials and things like that into the practice. So there's just a few, but I mean, we're constantly looking for, what's new and exciting. We've always been really driven by technology. So that's never been an issue for us. My doctor's always been to the mindset, let's just buy it and we'll make it work, which that's not my philosophy, but that was his. But we've always been really interested in that. So now with AI, there's just, there's so many, for cost savings purposes, we're looking at a lot of different things with AI on where we can save so that we can then put that back into the practice, put it back into our team. And that just a few things going on.
Yeah. Well, so another thing that a good leader does is when they're endeavoring to do those new things, hitting new categories, right? Then do they just add more to their existing team? Do you expand your team, or have you been able to find ways to work with, folks within the industry who do a good job at some of these things that might specialize in it? Do
Yeah.
you have release valves?
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, so whatever we're doing, whenever we're creating, like, I'll use our dry eye clinic as an example. You have to have a practice champion, not me, but you have to have somebody within the practice that's a champion for whatever you're trying to achieve. And I found within our practice an optometrist that was very excited about learning more about dry eye. I sent her and some team members to a dry eye, Patty Barkey's dry eye meeting, and they learned all about the technology out there, all about dry eye. They came back. We, sat down, had several meetings, drew up a plan of this is what we wanted to do, and we developed a core team with that practice champion. And we brought in one more team member into that area because obviously you can't add stuff and not, with the existing staff unless you have a lot of excessive staff members. But yeah, we added to the team. As far as industry, we have always been since I started with the practice, been with a philosophy that they are our partners. They're not, just a company that sells us stuff. They are our industry partners, and we value their input, we value their training, we invite them into the practice. We don't turn them away. And we really take advantage of that because there's some really great companies out there and really great people that have helped us implement. And even when we run into a snag, they have some answers for us. So definitely a great partnership with industry.
Let's talk about some of the categories you mentioned. So with the dry eye program, Dry Eye University was helpful, right?
Yes.
That's outside of your practice. With premium IOLs or RLEs, what are some external ways you've delegated that work with that category?
Yeah, so when we went, my team's gone to both BRICS meetings, and brought that back. But then we again have some practice champions for that as well. We have two cataract surgeons right now. We have two lens counselors or surgical counselors. We have our surgical scheduler who's very involved as well. And then we have our clinical supervisor who does all of the measurements and things like that. We do a lot of cataract lunch and learns. So we do them monthly. We just did one Wednesday and had 60 people. They
Nice.
come to our office, and we provide them a box lunch. And
How do you promote that, by the way?
so mostly on social media. It depends on the event because we do Sight night for vision correction. We do dry eye lunch and learn, and then cataract lunch and learns. Cataracts, we do, well, if we have a commercial running, we'll do a banner on that commercial that states when we're having it, and this is how you could sign up. But our Instagram, Facebook, digital ads, and they just go online onto our website and get their spot. But it's a really, really great opportunity to pre-educate patients and on all the options they have because there are a lot of options today, and to have them in the clinic at their consultation and try to talk about all of that and then have them make a decision on what they want. We're not doing it justice by doing it that way. So we do that. We also use Navigate for pre education. So Navigate, we have a navigator that calls our patients before their consultation and just talks to them about cataract surgery, what it involves, what their hobbies are, what they want to get out of their vision after surgery, and then talks about the different lens options and talks about financing. Are they comfortable with financing? Things like that. So when we have them in the exam chair, the doctor can see exactly what that patient is looking at, and it helps our team. It helps shorten the workup, shorten the time the counselor has to be with that patient because when you
Well, and
add all these
especially
things, yeah, it's a
especially with a
lot.
doctor who isn't confident in having the conversation or as
Yeah,
confident, they can know that at least there's a baseline of knowledge, right?
exactly.
Um, I'm going to move categories now because
Mhm.
I think that's important on the premium IOL side for cataract surgery and perhaps some RLE things. I love the lunch and learn. Um, what about in the IG space? What's been your release valve there?
Yeah, so we are just at the beginning of that. We just partnered with Brevium Elite, so we just brought that on. We've used Brevium in the past for our patient reactivations, but the platform that they have built with this Brevium Elite is it's just brilliant. I can't say enough about it. The amount of data that we can get out of our own system with the program that they created, to tell us, we're at the beginning of stages. So right now we're looking at who's missed their visual field or OCT, and then who has glaucoma and a cataract, and that hasn't had any intervention other that it's on drops with no other intervention. So we're doing all these reporting who has had maybe SLTs but nothing else. And then we're looking at who's scheduled in the next couple of weeks for a cataract evaluation or a glaucoma visit, and what sort of treatments have they had so far, so we can flag those charts for the doctors because there's just no way to do that justice by saying to the doctor, when you look at your patient, if they have glaucoma, remember to look and see if they've had an intervention and see if they want to get out of, reduce their dependence on eye drops. It's just not going to happen. They really have to be.
And by the way, if they do want to get away from their eye drops, make sure you recommend this procedure, not this
Yeah.
procedure, because this
Yep.
one isn't covered and this
Yeah.
one is.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, right.
Exactly. So our lens counselors, our cataract counselors have been really instrumental in kind of helping with that because we're really starting with our cataract glaucoma patients. So they've been really helpful, but I definitely see this turning into making a position for a glaucoma counselor. I also want to start doing glaucoma lunch and learns.
Yeah.
So that's something I want to start in the near future because glaucoma is just such a horrible disease. The reason I got in ophthalmology, you may not know this, I've told this story at some of the meetings, is my late grandmother, she suffered from glaucoma and she went blind from it. And it was just awful watching her decline and lose her vision. And so when I was going to school and I had to do an internship and I knew I wanted it in medical. So um, I said, I'd really love to work in an ophthalmology practice if you could find one for me. And they found this practice. And
Hmm.
so I did a couple months internship. I graduated. I called back Dr. Atwell Sr. for a reference, and he said, a reference? I want you to come and work for me. So that's how my career in
Wow.
ophthalmology started. But really, glaucoma to me is close to my heart because of my grandmother. So I want to see these patients that are non-compliant with their drops. We
Which
sadly
is
have
all of them.
all of them, and we sadly have to terminate patients because they aren't taking their drops, they aren't coming in for their visits, they're no showing, and we're liable. So we have to,
Yeah.
write them letters and say, we really want to get you in. We don't want to have to terminate care. And then sometimes we have to terminate care. If we could help those patients by saying, you know what, let's schedule you for an SLT. Let's see if we can reduce that dependence on drops. And then
Yeah.
let's see if a procedure can help you and you can get off of those drops. And then it won't be so horrible if they miss one of their appointments. But
Yeah, because
yeah,
going to be there's therapy being administered, you know,
exactly.
despite their compliance. One thing I'll just mention, and this is a nice little curbside consult, if you're going to go direct to the market to have your glaucoma lunch and learn, I would implore you to do a scrape of your own database first.
Yes.
Let them know first, right?
Yes.
Because people are so highly sensitive about
hmm
seeing things in the marketplace that they didn't know about that their
Oh,
provider offers.
absolutely.
They're
Yeah.
like, I'm already a patient there and I didn't even know.
Yeah. Right.
And
And
plus,
they're inviting others.
what I'm also worried about is there are so many glaucoma patients out there that are not being served that I worry about being able to process the
Right.
leads.
Yeah.
And so, I think we need to do both. We need to go to our database of patients and make sure we're educating them, intervening on their behalf. Secondly, think we need to very smartly go to the marketplace and start to educate that there's more interventional
Right.
approaches that can help stave off or slow the progression of the disease. But Debbie, the reason I brought up these categories, well, you brought up the categories. This whole session was labeled the leadership gap that no one is talking about, right? And I think it's one of the most important things about being a leader in ophthalmology today, and that is recognizing you can't get to it all,
hmm
right? Imagine if you had to be the one to tell your team, hey, everybody, all the patients for the next couple of weeks, I need you to look at their files and see if they're due for, like what surgery they might be a potential for, what their payer says. Like to do all that manually,
hmm
it's so impossible.
Right.
And we're talking about team members that are already busy.
Right.
The same thing is true when we're saying, are you educating people who are calling in about premium? Well,
hmm
we are when we can, but I'm also answering 200 phone calls a
Right.
day. And so
Yes.
knowing when to kind of pull do the release valve,
Right.
you can have a great professional education approach, I think is so critical. And I marvel at the practices that still want to do it all themselves. I would have been that practice,
Yeah.
because one of the worst things that I think you can be in today's business world is capable. Um, because you make the mistake of thinking you can do it on your own,
Yeah.
and you
True.
just can't anymore.
hmm No, I agree 100%.
I want to, we've been talking for a little bit here and about those categories and then also just, burnout and other things. Usually about this time, Debbie, we open up the lines for questions. And I just want to give people an opportunity to ask you, you've been an administrator. Had no idea you were there that long.
Yeah.
I barely eked out 20 years at Vance Thompson Vision, and I feel like I had to like pull wool over their eyes for at least 10 of those. So, who has questions for Debbie?
I do.
Cade.
Uh, you've got a lot going on, and you talked about using Brevium Elite for your glaucoma reactivation and patients and serving them and things like that. What does that do to your practice's workflow for your team? Like, if the number of patients within Brevium Elite are really high, like it sounds like, just given the number of existing glaucoma patients, is your team able to kind of like stay up with that work, or like what's that kind of
Yes.
patient workflow look like compared to your refractive and cataract?
Yeah, so it's a very good question because that was my concern. We are looking at possibly adding a second visual field at our main office because the increase in visual fields, we just can't, they take a certain amount of time. We can't keep up on them. We're maybe even looking at the virtual field option for some of the patients, but it definitely does add to the workflow. It adds to the number of technicians that we might need at a particular office. And we are taking all that into consideration. We're just at the beginning stages, but fortunately, the one really positive thing from Brevium Elite pulling our data is that we've been really, really good on making sure they're getting in for their testing,
Hmm.
which really made me happy because I think we were doing a good job, but
Yeah.
really being able to see that we really were. But where we're not doing a great job is that intervention. So intervening and getting them off drops. So that's really what our goal is. So most of that is really flagging the chart. This patient hasn't had any intervention or they've had SLTs or whatever it is. And then the scribe that's with the doctor will bring that up and then they'll, kind of just bring that up in the discussion. One thing in our cataract lunch and learns that's incredible. Every single cataract lunch and learn we have, someone asks about glaucoma.
Hmm.
Somebody in the audience says, I have glaucoma. How does that factor in? So just even talking organically about it at our lunch and learn has gotten patients because now we're able to say, well, we've always been able to say, well, with your cataract surgery, we can, there's some procedures we could do. But now we could say, if you have glaucoma and you're just on drops, we could possibly get you off of them with the treatment.
Yeah.
So it's that awareness that it's just so every time someone asks a question, I'm like, wow, there's not going to be one that goes by without somebody asking about glaucoma. And that just tells you how many people have it too.
Well, and
Hmm.
you're right, Debbie. One of the things that has been well published is, and I think it started with initial research that the clinical trials did, early doctors who were using the eye stent in clinical trials, is they found that roughly 20% of cataract candidates or
Hmm.
cataract aged folks have interventional based or glaucoma bad enough to intervene upon, right? So
Right.
20%, one in five. And so that stands to reason that every seminar you have, you probably had 12 there that day that you had, 60
Right.
people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if the numbers hold. The second thing I want to draw attention to, and it's a good question, Cade, how does it affect workflow, right? Something like Brevium Elite. There's other data that folks have published, Kevin Corcoran and others. I think Kirk Mack from um, VMG. I can't remember his
BSM?
name.
He with BSM? No.
He was with BSM.
He
I can't
was.
remember what
Yeah.
it's called now. But anyway, they've put out data that showcases that people on average are having less than one visual field a year, even if they have glaucoma in
Yeah.
a mild, moderate, or severe form.
Right.
And it should be for just ocular hypertension, very early
Hmm.
stages, it should be once
Yes.
a year.
Yep.
And it should be almost twice a year for mild, and then the spectrum goes up for like every
Right.
visit beyond that.
Mhm.
Reason that's so important, Debbie, is that it's another testament to you running it's a well-managed practice that you had patients who were compliant with their visual fields, because most don't,
Right. Yeah.
right? So we have this epidemic of of glaucoma patients who are on drops that we know aren't compliant, and yet we're not measuring their progression.
Right.
And so they're kind of just flying, I hate to say the word this way, but they're kind of flying blind out there in
Right.
almost a literal
Yeah.
sense. And
And
so I
and
just think it's one of the most important categories we have right now, and we
yeah.
happen to live in a time where it can be really good for the practice bottom line
Yes.
too.
Yeah, no, I agree. And not only from the patient perspective that they could be losing their peripheral vision, and we're not catching it, but then, that's a liability for the practice as well.
Yeah,
If something happens with that patient and the doctor wasn't following up or didn't, wasn't ordering the proper test, that's a problem.
yeah, that's right. What other questions do we have for Debbie? Debbie, while we're waiting for questions, I want you to give us an overview of how you're restructuring administrative training at the Royal Hawaiian Eye Meeting, because, and we've talked about this a little bit, I think that we have to, if if we're putting more and more on our leaders, we have to start to train them differently.
Yes.
And so you're tackling that head on with your new role. And congratulations, by the way, that's a big
Thank you.
deal.
Thank you. I'm, like I said, I'm very just honored and really, really excited. So what I wanted to do is really just to change things up a bit. One thing is, I think um, everyone, I mean, so many people look at ASOA for guidance, and that's the organization that is near and dear to my heart and has done such a great job over the years with their meetings and the content of those meetings. So I really want to try to get more ASOA members at the Hawaiian Eye meeting. I also want to bring the content from ASOA, some of that content. So one of the things I'm doing is the best of ASOA session. So each day of the meeting, the 5 days, one session is going to be an ASOA, best of ASOA session. And I went through the scoring of the ASOA meeting for this past meeting that we just had. And I selected 5 courses that ranked the highest and were good content for that fit in the pillars that I want to talk about at the meeting. And reached out to those speakers and asked if they'd be willing to come and talk. And every one of them said absolutely, I'd be honored. So that's one thing that I'm doing. I'm sort of taking it as a pillar approach. So the actual program, which it hasn't been announced yet, the name of it, but it's going to be Vision and Value, Strategy, Leadership, and Innovation in Eye Care. And those 5 pillars, vision, value, strategy, leadership, and innovation, each day there's going to be a talk that encompasses each one of those pillars. One of the things we're going to do is I'm going to have a interventional glaucoma 3-day half-hour session. So on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, Ben Seals is going to talk about interventional glaucoma, and he's going to break it down in 3 small segments so that they're just little bite size for people to hear a little bit and then want to come back and hear more the next day. I really want to do that with bricks as well, but just to bring in some really meaningful content. It's a great meeting. I love that it's just mornings because we all get to enjoy the afternoon and evening, but you really want to make the most of that morning time. So you want sessions that are really going to resonate with people and going to want them to come back the next day for some more.
Well, I love it. And I love the way you're kind of restructuring it as things change and requirements change and expectations change. We have to change with those times to make sure we're equipping leaders, towards their new constraints.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so good job at tackling that. Listen, everybody, we're coming up at our time. And Debbie, I want to thank you for being a part of the discussion today. I
Thank you
hope
for
to
having
continue
me.
to have you back, and I hope everybody knows they can reach out to her anytime. She's a wealth
Yes,
of knowledge
absolutely.
and is very generous with her time. I want to just pause here and just mention to everybody next week we are going to be having, I mean, maybe it's not the first, but I consider it to be the first self-serving webinar. We're going to have Courtney Davidson, who's my business partner and runs the day-to-day of MJM, our marketing company. She's going to be talking about what we feel like makes MJM different and special within the craft from industry standpoint, but also with the work we do with practices. I don't do much pitching, and I won't next week, but she might. And so,
It's
so
her
we
job.
really we ask you to come back and bring friends, and if you don't care to learn about that, no problem. But we just want to continue to bring value to our industry partners and to practices around the country, all based and rooted in ophthalmology. So thank you for enjoying this time with us together. We hope you have a wonderful week. We are adjourned. Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks,
Good
everybody.
work, Debbie. Bye.
Bye-bye.